On a cold morning in the town of Brunswick, around 7 a.m., Max, a stray dog who had spent his life on the streets, was starting his usual run for food. He knew the area well. His path led him past a row of restaurants on Main Street, where he always found something to eat in the trash cans behind the buildings. Max had gotten good at surviving this way. It wasn't glamorous, but it was enough to keep him from going hungry. But today felt different. As he sniffed around the garbage, Max's senses picked up something unusual. There was a new smell in the air. It wasn't the usual mix of food scraps and grease. This one was strange. A human smell, but also something else. Something smaller. Something that made Max's ears stand up. Curious, Max moved closer, following the scent. He approached one of the trash cans, its lid barely hanging on, and saw something behind it. There, against a brick wall, was an old blanket. The blanket was moving, just a little, and Max froze. His heart raced as he noticed something inside the blanket. He had learned to be wary of humans over the years, but this felt different. This smell wasn't one of harm. It was one of need, of something fragile and helpless. Max hesitated for a moment. Over the 9 years he had spent on the streets, he had seen the harsh side of people. Some humans were kind, but many could be cruel. He had learned to be cautious, yet there was something about this situation that felt different. Max couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was in the blanket needed help. With his heart pounding, Max carefully stepped closer, sniffing the bundle. He nudged it gently with his nose, and the blanket shifted. Max's ears perked up when he realized the tiny form inside was moving. His heart raced as he felt the fragility of whatever was there. It was small, so small. Max knew time was running out. Without hesitation, he grabbed the edge of the blanket in his mouth, being careful not to hurt whatever was inside. As he lifted it, the little figure grew limp, its tiny body weakening. Max's worry grew. If he didn't act fast, this fragile life wouldn't survive. Max turned and ran. His paws pounded against the cold pavement as he sprinted down the street, only one thought in his mind: he needed help. It was early though, and the town was still quiet. Most of the restaurants and shops were closed, and there were hardly any people around. Max knew he had to find somewhere that was always busy, a place where he could count on people being awake. He had been in tough situations before, but this felt different. If he didn't get help soon, he feared whatever was in the blanket wouldn't make it. As Max rounded the last corner, he spotted it up ahead. Brunswick Hospital. The lights were always on, no matter the time. Max had often roamed the area behind the hospital, searching for food. But today, he wasn't thinking about food. He had one goal: get help. His mission had just begun. When Max reached the hospital, he saw the usual hustle and bustle. People hurried across the parking lot, walking quickly toward the entrance. A few cars were parked near the doors, and the sound of an ambulance siren wailed in the distance, signaling something important was happening inside. Max could feel the urgency in the air. He knew he was close to finding help. Max walked toward the sliding glass doors, his heart racing. As he got closer, he spotted the first person, a woman behind the counter. She saw him, and her eyes widened in surprise. She jumped back, looking startled and worried. Max could tell she wasn't pleased to see him. She didn't even look at the bundle in his mouth. Her focus was solely on getting him to leave. Max felt a wave of tension. Instinctively, he thought about running, but he couldn't. This was too important. The woman was shooing him away, but Max didn't listen. He was on a mission, and he wouldn't stop until he found someone who could help. So, without hesitation, he turned away from her and moved into another room, the staff break area. It was quieter there, and Max knew it was his best chance. Inside the break room, Max saw 3 women sitting at a table, sipping coffee. They didn't notice him at first, but as he walked closer, 2 of them stood up quickly, trying to push him out. Their voices were firm, and it was clear they didn't want him there. Max didn't move. The bundle in his mouth shifted again, and he looked over at the 3rd woman. This woman, named Sarah, sat quietly at the table, her eyes on her coffee. At first, she didn't react, but when she noticed Max, something in her expression changed. She wasn't frightened by the dog. Instead, she seemed calm and understanding. Sarah stood up and slowly walked toward him, speaking gently, trying to reassure him. Max felt something he had never felt before. She wasn't scared of him, She didn't want to push him away. She wanted to understand him. Max slowly dropped the blanket from his mouth and stepped back, watching her closely. Sarah knelt down, her eyes filled with concern. Without hesitation, she reached for the blanket and carefully unwrapped it. As she pulled it back, she gasped in shock. Inside the bundle was a tiny baby, barely moving. Its skin was blue from the cold, and it had little strength left. The baby was in serious condition, and it needed help right away. Max had brought it to the right person, and Sarah knew she had to act fast to save the baby's life. Sarah's heart broke as she realized what was happening. She quickly shouted for help, her voice full of panic. "Call a doctor! We need help in here now! There's a baby, an infant in critical condition." She rubbed the tiny baby's chest, trying to wake it up, but nothing happened. The baby didn't move. Its little body was ice cold. Then, something amazing happened. The baby's heart beat, faint but there. Sarah let out a sigh of relief, holding on to the hope that the baby could make it. She had to stay calm and pray that the baby would survive long enough to get help. Max stood quietly in the corner, his bright eyes watching everything. For the first time, he didn't feel like just a stray dog. He had done something important. He had saved a life. When the doctor arrived, Sarah stepped aside, letting him take over. As the doctor attended to the baby, Sarah's focus shifted back to Max. She kneeled down beside him, her heart full of gratitude. She couldn't believe what he had done. Max had risked everything to save the tiny baby, and now, because of him, the child had a chance at life. Sarah reached out, slowly extending her hand toward Max. He didn't back away like he usually did with strangers. Instead, he sat still, his bright eyes meeting hers. It was as if he knew she was different. She wasn't like the others who had ignored him or shooed him away. Sarah couldn't help but smile as she touched his fur. He was no longer just a stray dog. He had become a hero, and in a strange way, they had shared this moment together. Max had saved the baby, but now he had saved himself too. He was no longer alone. That night, Sarah took Max home with her. He quickly settled in, curling up on the couch with a sense of comfort and safety he had never known before. For the first time in his life, he had a place to call his own, a family to belong to. It was a new beginning for both of them. 3 months later, Max received another surprise. One evening, Sarah came home from work, carrying a small bundle in her arms. Max sniffed the air and immediately recognized the familiar scent, the same smell from the blanket in the alley. It was the baby he had saved. Sarah had adopted the child, bringing the little one into their home to give it a new start. Max could hardly believe his eyes. He had not only saved a life, but had also helped bring this family together. Watching the baby grow, Max realized that his life had changed forever. He wasn't just a street dog anymore. He was part of a family, and that was all he ever needed. So, that's all for today. What are your thoughts about this story? Tell us in the comment section below. And if you like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Your support means so much to us. Until then, take care and thanks for watching.